call to order our Bedford Board of Education, April 6, 2023, regular meeting. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Boynton.
Here.
Mr. Akins.
Here.
Mrs. Turnberg.
Present.
Mr. Lippert. Mrs. Macklin.
Here.
Thank you.
Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Visitors are always welcome at our board meetings. If you wish to address the board, please complete the form provided upon arrival at the meeting and give it to our treasurer. Oral presentations are limited to 3 minutes each so that our meeting may proceed uninterrupted. Also, please silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Avon. On our agenda is item number 2.01 is the acknowledgement of our goals. Those are the district goals. You can read those at your leisure, please. Under section 3, awards, presentations, and communication, 3.01 is awarding of the diploma. They moved it back over there. Oh, sorry. It's supposed to be done.
That's all it usually is with the microphone. I'm not
The mic for the, because it's for the TV. It's for the live stream.
but then we'll come up there.
Use the mic.
You need to come there and then up there.
You, not us.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you put the mic
Put
up
the
here?
mic on.
Put the mic up.
It's on the cord unless somebody else knows how to.
Let's do it there.
Okay.
Good evening to the board president, board vice president, and superintendent Dr. Johnson. We are here today to award one of our students, our very deserving students who has worked so hard. So this is very personal for me to see her here and to see, her growth and just her journey and her making sure that she stayed true to what she was destined to do. So without further ado, the student receiving a Bedford High School diploma tonight has completed the course of study prescribed by the Board of Education for the Bedford High School, classed at first grade and accredited, and is therefore awarded this diploma given from Bedford, Ohio, on this 6th day of April, 2023. Everybody please congratulate Amory Vincent. Let's walk up here.
Thank you. Family? Yeah, before she goes, I know the board probably wants someone to shake your hand. Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Come in, come in.
You want to take pictures up there with you?
Yeah.
All right. It's your time. Go ahead.
And my grandma needed it.
Yeah, we were hoping all the graduation. Y'all want Uncle Will, go ahead, Mama, show me. Thank you, everyone. I was not letting it go. You worked very hard, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you and congratulations again. Next on the agenda is item number 3.02, and we will have an update from GPD.
You can't follow that.
Come on.
You want us to give you a song too?
What song would that be?
I'll sing it. Oh, it's a great house. Oh, it's a great word. School rock. Schoolhouse rock. Schoolhouse rock.
Okay. Good evening. Good to be with you again. Abby Ranieri with GPD Group and Mark Salapak with GPD Group. And we just wanted to give you an update on where we are in the master planning process. May is going to be a big month for us, timeline-wise, and so we're going to talk about where we are now and then what our next steps might be. So we'll jump right in. This is just a reminder of the committee's guiding principles, which were set forth in our very first meeting, and I think they really paved the way for the plan that is being recommended at this point and where we're landing. So I just wanted to kind of remind everybody that this was kind of what drove the group in the work that was done. So before we dive into the recommended master plan and where we're landing, what we did with the committee last meeting was just as a reminder, since we've been, working down this path to a potential new facilities plan, we just wanted to remind everybody kind of why we're doing this and why we're looking at this new master facilities plan, and it has to do with the age and condition of our existing buildings. So just as a high-level recap, how we started our last committee meeting was taking a look at where the building assessments of the existing buildings were. So this slide is just a summary of what it would take, how many dollars it would take to put into our existing buildings to bring them up to the same level of quality that we would expect from a new building. So assessments were done of each existing facility, as you all know, and we were comparing the existing facilities against the Ohio School Design Manual, which is a standard set forth by the OFCC, and we were able to put costs together of what it would look like to bring those all the way up to the standards and expectations we would have for a new facility. So you can see we itemized that very first column. If we were to just renovate and refurbish all the buildings, we'd be at $224 million. So I think it's important to just kind of remember why we kind of started on this path and why we are recommending, and the committee is recommending a new building solution instead of renovation of the existing facilities. Even if we started trying to, tackle little bits of that at a time, you can see we started looking at what might need to be done in the next 5 years versus 10 years versus after that. And the costs are just really, really significant any way you slice it. So that's how we began our last committee meeting, and we thought it appropriate to just kind of give you that snapshot again of just the great need that we have in the facilities. So we've really been working hard towards a master plan option, and really once we were able to lay down all of our what we consider non-negotiables, so some of those might have come from you as a board, some of those came from our committee work, and work with our central administrative staff that obviously has that connection to the educators and what's happening in each building. And there were 9 non-negotiables, or 9 must-haves for our plan. So I'll go through those quickly. The first was to provide a district-wide solution. Even if it needed to be phased, we wanted to make sure we knew what we wanted to do in the whole district. The next was that we wanted to maintain buildings in communities that already have existing buildings. So we didn't want to put something on the table that was going to take a school out of a community that existed in. We wanted to make sure we caused the least disruption to our students as possible. So we know that some construction plans might involve phasing or swinging kids into different buildings. We wanted the quickest and easiest kind of transition possible. We wanted to include grade-banded elementary schools to maintain academic equity across our buildings. We wanted to incorporate career tech and partnerships into the plan. We knew that we wanted to address the middle school and our oldest primary buildings in the first phase because we know we have a lot of the greatest needs in those facilities, and that middle school being that transition time for students after intermediate and before high school. We wanted to consider growth in the future, but we also wanted to be as fiscally responsible as possible. So not underbuilding, not overbuilding, but trying to really, build correct size. We didn't want to have to include any swing space. So swing space is temporary space that's just used during construction. We didn't want to have that in our building plan. And our last non-negotiable was that we did not want to have to acquire any new land. So we wanted to make sure we could build on sites that you already had, and the dollars that we were going to invest in the facilities were going to go into the facilities and not purchasing property. So this is a pretty extensive list of non-negotiables, and I mention that only because once we kind of understood what the plan needed to include, it narrowed down our options for us pretty quickly. So this slide is the full district-wide master plan that the committee has been working toward, and these are the components of that plan. So the vision for the new plan would be a new 9 through 12 school with career tech. That would be on the existing high school site, and we've studied how that could fit and make sure we could fit parking and make sure we could fit that building on this site. A new 6 through 8 school across the street at the existing Chanel site. A new 3 to 5 school at the site of the existing Columbus school. And then a new pre-K through 2 school at the existing Heskett site. So that would go behind the existing Heskett building, is where that would sit. Included in that, and something that the committee felt strongly about, as well as you as a board, was including some additional pre-K classrooms to meet that growing program and expand that pre-K. We would then be able to abate and demolish our existing school buildings, taking those offline. And then as part of the new high school plan on this site, we would need to take down this existing central admin building. And so we would build new at the Heskett site. So there would be a new board and central office space there that we're exploring. So this is where we landed as a plan that kind of checked all those 9 boxes on the previous slide. And where we are at right now in the process is we've been applying costs to this plan. So we use budgets, dollars per square foot, and then also additional kind of industry information to set the costs for this plan. And we are right now in the process of working with you and with your bond counsel to determine how we want to fund this. And if we can fund it all in one big phase, or if we need to phase it into 2 phases. We don't quite have that answer figured out yet, as we are working towards that. But if we did have to phase it, if we couldn't do all this at one time, we have 2 different ways that could be phased, which I'll recap quickly on the next 2 slides. This first one we've been calling Plan Yellow. So one way we could do this, if we can't do it all at once, would be to tackle the new high school, the new 6 through 8, and the new pre-K through 2 first. and we would build the new 3 to 5 later. So if we have to do this plan, we would temporarily move the 3rd through 5th grade students into the existing Heskett building, and that's how we would accommodate everyone until we could build that new 3 to 5. So if we have to phase, here's one way we could phase it. The other way we could phase it, we've been calling Plan Blue, and this plan would have us building the new 6 through 8, the new 3 to 5, and the new pre-K to 2, and then we would have to address the high school in a future phase. So these are just different pieces of that one initial plan that I presented, and a direction on these is gonna all come down to our financing and what we can afford to bite off in one phase. So does anyone have any questions just on where we've landed with our district-wide master plan at the time?
Yeah, I wanna know where the logic and sequencing happened, where the Board of Education building will go into Bedford Heights instead of remaining in Bedford.
So initially, the reason that we talked about it fitting on the Heskett site with the K through 2 was just that was our second largest site. Just the size and the acreage that we had to build on. And we thought it was a nice connection to kind of that early ed piece. However, the building and the square footage that's required could also fit potentially on the Chanel site. So there are options.
What's the connection to bridging early learning? Is that because we are preschool coordinators? Could you clarify what you mean by the? Yeah, she stated, it'll help support the early learning with it being next to the pre-K through 12 building. So is that because we have preschool coordinators?
Having central office there?
Yes, because that's what this is recorded. That's what this is saying. That the
That
central
would be
office and
on the
this
pre-K through 2
building
site.
would go away and it will now shift to Bedford Heights
Yes.
and it has to. So how is that correlate? She stated that it will help support the pre-K through 12. So how is that correlated?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a correlation between us having to have central office with pre-K, as she just shared, that it could also be with the middle school. But the bottom line is we can't be here because they need this land in order to, at some point, build a new high school. So we either have to be somewhere over there where we already have land or across the street, but it could be either or. We're also trying to make sure whatever the decision is in terms of central office is that, just my philosophy, you're the board, you have to make that decision. I'm struggling with taking money from our children anyways to build a new central office. So whatever is the most fiscal, responsible way to do that, that is what GPD has done. To say it could be either here or it could be either there, but I feel like it's gonna be a hard sell to our community to say I'm spending millions of dollars on the administrators who make the most money in the district, and we're gonna take money away from our children and the resources. So the goal is either it needs to be in an existing building with, or a new building with the kids, whether it's the pre-K 2, or it's the middle school, high school, unfortunately it's kind of packed, but that was the rationale, that it would be with another building, if at all possible.
So it's kind of built into not a separate building, but kind of built
Right.
into the
Yes.
building. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would be,
Just to not have that whole new building, added cost and so forth.
yeah, and we could do that, obviously having its own dedicated entry and, space, but we could certainly take advantage of some efficiencies by building it right with another building instead of its own structure.
Can you go to the yellow phase?
So the way they're ordered in terms of cost is kind of like most expensive, second most expensive, and third most expensive. So that's why they're broken up that way, and we're just kind of trying to figure out how much we can ask our community to support.
And I believe, Abby, didn't the committee lean more towards the blue?
Yes.
It was the blue.
And what is the blue, can you go to the blue side?
Blue is when we wait and tackle the high school a little bit later. So this gets the advantage here, you know, right off the bat. We get all of our oldest buildings down that are costing us the most money to maintain, and we get everybody in that you know, grade banded configuration and the new facilities, and then we tackle the high school later.
And what would be the time frame that we'll be looking at when you're saying tackling this first and then that later? What does the later time frame look like?
It's a great question. So right now you're enrolled in the ELPP program through the OFCC, and in that program, anything you build, you would build up credit on, and then at a later time you would get that money from the state. Unfortunately, they don't really have a great time frame on when you might be able to expect that, but what we're being told is typically, you know, maybe even 10 years out. So the idea with either of these phased plans would be you could potentially take advantage of that credit that you get from the state and put it towards that next phase. You know, in the phase yellow, when you're tackling a 3 to 5 school later, that credit could potentially cover most of the cost of that new school potentially. In the phase blue, you're not going to have as much. The high school is the most expensive one of all of them, especially with the career tech pieces. So it would potentially go towards a portion of that, and then you just have to kind of fund the difference. So you probably, in a phase situation, be looking at a number of years out to do that next phase.
So looking at what, 3 to 5 for the first, if we're looking at blue, roughly around 3 to 5, 3 to 6 years to complete that first portion, and then
Can you give us some time frame? Yeah. Yeah.
so 5 years up to 3 to 5. So 5 years for the first phase, and then you're saying 10 years later for following? So we're looking at 35
Potentially
for high school?
that's a guess based on when you would get your state funding. So, you know, it's harder to guess on that next phase. But, and again, you wouldn't have to do it that way. I mean, that would all be based upon if you can, you know, work a different, you know, funding mechanism sooner. But you will be building credit if you do phase it. And so that's why I offered that as a way to kind of take a big dent out of that next phase.
And I think you said the ultimate goal, the dream would be to do it all at once.
Yep.
And so that's what's kind of holding us up to kind of figure out if it's possible to do that. Because to my understanding, we're at this, but that's why we're waiting, you know, for that money. And so also, can't the amount go up or go down?
So if you,
Like, how does that work?
sure. So within the OUT program, which you're enrolled now, if you elect to continue to move forward with the state and in the summer, essentially what would happen, if in May you approve this plan, you decide you want to participate with the state, you would sign an agreement with them this summer. And that agreement would essentially state that you are agreeing to follow the Ohio School Design Manual, and you are partnering with the state, and in turn, that would lock in your state share at this time, and then your share would be locked in. You're at about 20%.
Okay.
And that would, the thing that would change potentially is when you get your money, they'll do a new enrollment projection. So if you have more students, that will be reflected in your share. If you have less students, that will also be reflected. But if you want to move forward with them with this plan this summer, that would lock in your equity rank or your percentage from the state. You would be locked in this year.
Other
questions about the plan? We also have one slide to talk about some next steps too. It kind of ties in with what we're talking about here. We have looked at this timeline many times. Yeah. Sorry, just watching. So this timeline's been shared with you before. We kind of always are looking at it as what are we doing through May, and then what are we doing after May. So we're approaching that month of April, so it's highlighted. And what we are going to be doing this month is, coming to a consensus regarding the master plan. So we've already done that. Our master plan recommendation is that first slide of that full plan that you saw. What we are currently doing is we're awaiting two things. The first is a cost update from the OFCC, and I think we've talked about this before, but every April they update their cost sets, which are their cost per square foot, which sets your budget. Those should be coming out within the next week or so. So we'll have finalized costs for your master plan, and that goes hand in hand with the conversations that we're having with your bond counsel to determine if you can kind of go ahead and tackle that whole plan or not. So that's something really critical that's happening within the next week, and that's why we didn't present costs to you tonight, because that information is coming out very soon. We'd rather just give you the final numbers. And then we would also, towards the end of this month and getting into May, be looking to have you approve that final master plan, and that would allow the state to go ahead and start their paperwork with that agreement for you all. So as that moves forward, we're going to have our final committee meeting in April, and we're also getting ready to do some community polling on this master plan as well, and that's being coordinated with your with Galen from Taft, your consultant. So we're working as a team on that. So those are our next steps in the short term. And then in June, if we're moving forward, we would begin a series of board readings and procedural things that need to happen for you to be on the ballot in November. So those are our next steps in the short and long term. One final thing, since we're talking about OFCC, that we wanted to mention tonight is part of your costs right now, they include in the budget provisions for a storm shelter. So in 2017, the Ohio Revised Code was adjusted to include language that required schools to have storm shelters in them. And these aren't just what you think of as like, get in the hallway and a safe space. These are like actual hardened sections of the building that could withstand like major tornadoes. They're the types of shelters that you would build in Oklahoma, for example. So in 2017, the building code required them, but almost immediately they allowed folks to opt out of including them, and just this past November, they struck that requirement from the code altogether. So no schools are required to do that anymore. The OFCC has left that as an option in the budget. So right now, all the numbers that we're looking at for your master plan have those storm shelters in them. And it ends up being almost, a couple $1 million worth of money to go towards these storm shelters. And you have the option to not include them. Mark and I were talking before the meeting of all of our clients combined in the last 5 years since this has gone into effect. No single district in the state of Ohio that has built since then has opted to include it. So it's more typical that you don't. We don't really know of any that have included it, and especially any around here. So we just wanted to make you aware that that's a potential savings within your budget, and it's not a requirement, and that's just another decision in order to finalize our master plan, so we just wanted to make you aware of that. Do you have any questions about that piece?
Is there any other codes or specificities that are included that we may not even know about? Like that, you just gave us that information. We're not a rural community or anything where we're prone to tornadoes or anything, but is there some other thought processes of things that have to be included in the buildings outside of ADA or for health and wellness reasons or anything of that nature?
Yeah, so LEED certification is one thing that's required per the OFCC. So that LEED certification is all about how sustainable your building is. So that's gonna look at how efficient your building envelope is, your HVAC system, how much energy you use. So that's all about sustainability. So yes, there's some requirements with that. But anymore, honestly, the Ohio Building Code has caught up to all those standards as well, so you're pretty much going to be doing most of that stuff anyway. And the only other thing I can think of like that is what's in the Ohio School Design Manual, which again is what we would consider to just be good practice for building a school building. That's going to last you at least 50 plus years. So. That's all we have prepared to update you on tonight, and again, I think our next update would be after our final committee meeting.
Thank you. I did see a hand in the audience. We do not take questions from the audience in our meetings, but I would like to invite you to our facility meeting, which is April 26th. You can ask as many questions as you like. It will be at the high school at 5:30. On April 26th, so please, 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock at the high school it's at the high school, isn't it? In the auditorium, yes. In LGI. I'm sorry. That was in auditorium. So, April 26th, LGI at the high school, 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is item number 3.03, Howard University students visit presentation. And yes, here. Thank you. We'll hear from Ms. Paul. I got this one.
Hello, everyone. So, alternative to spring break. This is when students from Howard University, we had about 25 students from Howard University come to Bedford High School as an alternative to their spring break versus going to Miami, Myrtle Beach, even going home. They have a program put in place where they volunteer in different areas of the United States and even overseas to donate their time to volunteer at various facilities in a certain city, okay? So it started with Marion Davis. Marion Davis is a former student graduate of Bedford High School class of 21, and Blessing Lockwood. Blessing is one of the students who were over a site, okay? And she was over the Cleveland site. And she knew Marion was from Cleveland. She talked to Marion and said, what can we do in Cleveland, Ohio? What places can we come to do service activities, to donate our time, to volunteer? And then Marion said, definitely you need to come to my high school. Okay, so he had Blessing contact me. I happened to be over at Heskett scheduling for the 8th graders, and Blessing contacted me and said, Marion Davis is a good friend of mine. He told me about Bedford High School and how this could be one of the sites that we can come and volunteer at during our spring break. And I said, oh, okay. I said, when is your spring break? And she said the week of March 6th, which was perfect because that was our Unity Week throughout our district. So, so that's a picture of Marion with the varsity H jacket on, if you all are not familiar with Marion, and that is Blessing. And these were the list of the Howard students that came over to Bedford High School. For the most part, it was 25 at the most. We did have a day where we only had 15 because they go to various different areas throughout the city. They went to the Salvation Army. They went to the Cleveland Food Bank. They went to a couple of churches. They went to, and they had other schools that they went to as well. But they knew they had to come to Bedford. So they were at Bedford that Monday the 6th, Tuesday the 7th, and that Friday the 10th, okay? So these are the list of the students in their majors, which I found very fascinating that there is not one that is an education major that is listed there. So I'm very a little concerned about the future of education. But various backgrounds, they were, not one was from Cleveland, okay? And they got to choose what city they wanted to come to. So I was very pleased and shocked that they wanted to come to Cleveland. They were excited about coming to Cleveland, learning about our city, learning about everything that, even with our high school. So they were very, very helpful. Everything that we had them do at our school, they did it with, you know, great passion, with excitement. So I'm going to highlight some of the things that they did do while they were here. So on Monday, these are some of the pictures that they took, and they actually shared them with me. So on Monday, we actually passed out. So our theme was I Am Enough Suicide Prevention, okay? And they helped pass out bracelets to all of the second period classes. They spoke to various students in various classrooms and participated in lessons. So one of the pictures in the middle is where they were in Miss Darden's class, and they did a whole lesson with them. And then they played Unity Bingo with our students in the cafeteria. So we had different terms that they, you know, read off the definitions, and the students had to guess. So some of them, they were at the tables with the students, working with them, you know, helping them with the terms and things of that nature. And then they were taking terms each period because we had 4 lunch periods. So one of the pictures of one of the students calling off or reading off the terms and giving them the answers for bingo that Monday. Then on Tuesday, we actually partnered up with Glendale as well. Glendale wanted some of the Howard students to come over to their building. So I split some of them off to be at Bedford High School and to be at Glendale as well. And at Glendale, they spoke to the whole entire first grade student body in a whole group assembly, answering various questions regarding college. Then they went to individual second grade classes and answered questions with them as well. So you see the picture of them in the assembly, and then there's a picture of them in one of the second grade classes. At the high school, they helped us decorate keychains. So that's a picture of an example of one of the keychains that was made stating our theme, I Am Enough. They spoke to individual classes. So one of the pictures up there is a picture of them in Miss Belito's classroom where they were talking to students and answering questions about college. And then it was very interesting. They were in our college and career room, and we have that microfilm machine in the room, and they were just like, what is that? Okay, they're the new generation, okay? So they've never seen a microfilm machine. And so our secretary, Jessica, was showing them how it worked, and they were so intrigued. It was so funny. They were very intrigued with that machine because they had never seen it. This is not their generation, of course. So I had to share that picture of them. And then one of the highlights that I wanted to present up there is that, of course, HBCU, our culture, they have a dance line. I know I went to Carolina, and I loved our dance line, but I just couldn't dance like that and be a part. And they were so happy and so impressed with our dance line. And so they did a show for them, and they were like, can you teach us? Like, they're like me. They aspire to go on their dance line, but they're just not. They're not on their dance line. And so I have a video that Blessing showed, and I just wanted to show them, like, y'all can see it. They loved our dance line. They had so much fun with them, and you know, that is our culture. That's one thing I wanted to highlight, our dance line. And just, you know, I told Taisha Crumby, who's over our dance line, I said, they love them. They love their attitude, they love their energy. They were so, you know, impressed by our dance line, and I just had to highlight, you know, that. And Blessing shared that video with me because they just they love that, because that's our culture. That's HBCU, that dance line. They love the girls. So I wanted to share that time with them as well. That they had that time with our dance line. So shout outs to Miss Cromedy and her dancers. I'm sorry. And then on Friday, they spoke to more classes because every single day some teachers asked for them to come and talk to their classes. And then we had a penny war amongst our classes. So we had our big pep rally, and I'm big on service and giving to any organization. So since we were suicide prevention and that was our focus, I picked Cornerstone of Hope, who is an organization that we do partner with here in our district. Anytime we have any kids who need counseling, whether it was grief, it's anxiety, if it's stress, whatever. So we had a penny war amongst the district. So I know Carewood had a penny war. They donated in Columbus as well as with Bedford High School. And they counted all them coins. Like, it was a lot of coins. And they had no problem with it. They loved it. They enjoyed it. So on Friday, that was the majority of their time, counting all the money to donate to Cornerstone of Hope. And then at the end of the day, we took a group picture. Thank you, shout outs to Mr. Zaka, Mark Zaka, our athletic director. He provided them shirts, and they were like, we get shirts. They were so excited. And I was happy to even have that for them. That was something that they could take away with them. And they also made keychains. They took the keychains with them as well. And also to Miss Israel, who made a nice gift for them to take with them. So they were so very pleased with our district. We are on the map. We are on their agenda every single year. So this is not a one and done. They want to continue to build a relationship with us. So they plan on coming back next year. We will allow them to do this every single year. So it's very impressive because they have this program where they try to get at least 1,200, and they get it. They exceeded. They had over 1,500 students at Howard University apply for this program. And 1,200 students, they went all over outside of the country. They went to Ghana, Puerto Rico. Okay, so they sent students there. And I'm like, y'all came to Cleveland? They like, yeah. So they came to Cleveland, they were excited. They were able to go different places, and I was really pleased with them because they were like, no, we want to come back here. They had so much fun here, and I was very happy that we allowed them to come here and, help serve our students. Our students love them. We have so many students who were like, I'm going to Howard, I'm going to Howard, I'm going to HBCU. And they loved every second with them. Even our teachers had great things to say about them. So kudos to Marion Davis, who said, yes, you need to come to Bedford High School, and put us on the map with him. And so this is not a one and done. If we will allow them to come next year, they will be here. Cleveland is a permanent city, she told me. So every single year they add more cities if they can. And Cleveland is a permanent fixture now, and so is Bedford City School District. So if we will allow them to come, they will be here. And just some more pictures of them. I mean, they were taking so many pictures. They had a cheer, and they had the kids do the cheer with them in the cafeteria. It was a great experience. So thank you to Dr. Johnson, who allowed them to come, Ms. Lewis, who provided them lunch, because it was free to them. They made it so that it was not a cost to the students. So they were provided housing from different sponsors. Anytime they came to Bedford, Ms. Lewis used some of her budget to feed them every single day that they were here. So those kind of things, it made it work out. So just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here and presenting, because I know it was a couple meetings ago, Dr. Johnson had mentioned that the Howard students were in. I had all these questions like, are they gonna be a pipeline for the district? And she's like, well, we'll just have to see if Ms. Paul can come in. So I appreciate both of you coming in to share that, because you answered a lot of the questions that I had. And I hope that this will be a great way. And I was looking at the list too, like, I don't see anybody in education. However, there's so many different pipelines and pathways to get into education, whether it be finance. Now you end up being a financial literacy educator, or I saw legal communications. All these other pathways, even though they might be majoring in that, they could very well end up teaching or educating in some capacity, utilizing even those majors. So
Yeah, I think we kind of switched some over to, okay, I like talking to these youth, so I might can look into teaching high school. Yeah, they loved it. They had, like I said, they had an opportunity to go to another school. They like, no, we want to come back here. They didn't want to go to the other school. They want, because they had an opportunity where they could swamp and switch, and they wanted to come back to Bedford. So that was really good to hear.
Well, thank you, and we look forward to them coming back. And kudos, Morian, for being that segue and that bridge. Also.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I was just curious real quick, the penny war that you guys had, do you have a total of how much you guys
I
received?
do not yet because I'm still waiting on funds from Carolwood.
Okay.
Yes. So far it was over 600 for the high school. It was over 600 some dollars. Okay, just high school alone. And then we had money come from Columbus, and then we're still waiting on the money from Carolwood. So I don't have a final total yet, but I will make sure I email you and let you know.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Yes, and I think I had a picture. I don't know how to go back. Let me see. Did I go back? No, I don't have I didn't put the picture of Miss Sue Mack. She came to the Spirit Assembly to graciously thank all the students for raising the money for their organization, and she actually wants it bigger for next year. Like she said, we want to be able to provide a prize for the class that got the most or raised the most money, because it was the sophomores, but then it actually was the seniors, because if you know how penny war goes, if you give silver coins, that takes away from the other classes. So the sophomores raised the most pennies, but the seniors brought way more silver coins and deducted from the other classes. Yeah, and so the seniors wound up winning. And so I had her take a picture with the seniors, and she was so impressed and so pleased. And she was like, "We need to do something bigger and better." Like, because all they got was, points towards the Spirit Assembly. They got points. She was like, "No, they should get pizza or something." So I'm like, "Okay, we could do something bigger and better." So, having that partnership too, like, it's just so great bringing in different organizations here. So it was great. So I'll make sure I will email you that total.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Paul.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great to
Thank
hear
you.
from HBCUs. Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is item number 3.04. This is sports presentation by Mr. Toth.
Good evening, Board of Education. Good evening, President, Vice President, Dr. Johnson. First and foremost, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present tonight to you here at the board meeting. I'm going to discuss our intramural programs. Intramural program that we initiated towards the end of last school year, and that has been running in full swing this school year. So just a quick backstory, I met with Dr. Johnson probably last year around this time, and we talked about how we did not really offer any sports or athletics on a district-wide level for our younger students. So I want to give her a big thanks for just kind of mentioning it to me and then giving me the green light to just run and put the program in place with the help of Mr. Zafka, as well as various other members, Denise Dick helping me get communication out there and various other things that helped build this program and make it successful and prepared for the future. So the goals of our intramural program is, like I mentioned, we want to provide more opportunities for students in our district. We would like to also create interest in our sports programs, as well as develop a feeder program for our high school or middle school and high school sports, and help us retain our students in the district that may think about leaving in the future. Intramurals has been this year is during our fall and winter session was for grades 1 through 5. For our spring session, we have expanded it now to grades 1 through 6. So these are all the grades that do not get to participate in middle school and high school athletics yet, and it is for BCSD residents. So last year, when I talked to Dr. Johnson, we kind of rolled it out and we started having these clinics. At each clinic, we had between 20 to 40 kids. These were just one-day clinics or camps. Last year, we were able to have a basketball camp, a volleyball camp, a soccer camp, as well as a cheer camp. And we did these on a Saturday from about 11 to 1 p.m. where it was free of charge for all the students in our district that were interested. We got the word out there, and since it was relatively new, we had about 20 to 40 kids at each clinic, depending on which clinic it was. This year, we were able to expand to create the actual intramural program, which is a 7 to 8 week session regarding each sport for those grades and those students. In the fall, from September to November, we ran an 8-week basketball session, which was twice a week. In the winter, we ran a 6 to 7 week volleyball session, which was once again twice a week. In the spring, we are running a 1 night a week soccer session. And then to come in the summer, we are going to be offering over the summer intramural flag football as well as intramural cheerleading. And one thing to note is that this is all free of charge for our students. Our students do not have to pay a dime. Their parents and guardians just have to sign them up, and they are able to participate in the programs if they wish. These programs take place at the various buildings throughout our district. One hurdle that Dr. Johnson and I discussed in the nightmare of transportation, of trying to house all these programs at one building at the same time. So what we came up with is in the fall, we ran a basketball program simultaneously at the 4 buildings in the elementary school, where they were staffed by coaches and they were all running at the same time in the individual buildings, where we did not have to worry about transporting the kids. Our soccer program is going to run at the high school, so that's why BHS is on there, due to the fact that our high school coaches are going to be involved running the program as opposed to other district employees. Our workers are all BCSD district employees, whether they are we had teachers, we had school nurses, we had security guards, we've had various people who have decided to give their time to help give back to these kids and learn and set the foundation for these sports. And these coaches have to pass what we have to take at the high school level in order to get certified to coach. They do not have to do the pupil activity permit, but they do have to pass a coaching credentials test, and it requires first aid, concussion training, as well as various other things via the coach's tool chest. Mr. Zofko our athletic director, was able to get me some codes and make sure that our coaches were all certified in order to participate and educate our student athletes. Numbers of participants. So our basketball program had over 125 students throughout the district participate twice a week for 8 weeks, learning the game of basketball. Our volleyball program had over 85 students. I just closed the signups today for soccer. Our soccer numbers are actually at 110. So we have over 110 students signed up for intramural soccer. And then football and cheer is to be determined, because we have not done the signups for those yet. The big thing that the intramural program focuses on is you see a lot of programs where they talk about just getting students involved in playing games. Our philosophy and what we decided to do with our intramural program is we wanted to just introduce skills-based instruction, where at the younger levels you might see in the rec programs and other programs that students are just going and playing games and they're not really learning the fundamentals of the games. So our plan was to treat these not as games but as practices and learning skill-based instruction. So they learn the fundamental of each sport, which will eventually, and which did so far, set the foundation for playing in actual games, which I will get to on the next slide, and then eventually at the middle school, high school, and community-based travel. So you guys know our middle school and high school sports, so what I wanted to focus on is our community-based travel through our partnership with Luke Toth Basketball, who runs a travel basketball company. What we were able to do with our basketball is, so a lot of kids play AAU and play travel. There's a cost associated with travel. So we were able to make this partnership with LTB where we were able to cut the cost for each individual kid in half. So instead of paying $300 per kid, I believe we got the price down to $150, and that was why, with using our intramural budget, we were able to help alleviate the cost of uniforms, facilities, as well as tournament fees and whatnot, to make it cheaper for our district kids. So these are some pictures. They participated in 4 to 5 tournaments throughout the months of January and February. Some of the tournaments were held here at Bedford High School. as well as various locations throughout Northeast Ohio, as it is community-based travel. So these are teams of all Bedford kids. We had over 5 teams, girls and boys. We had a girls' 4th and 5th grade team. I think we had a boys' 3rd grade team, a boys' 4th grade team, a boys' 5th grade, and a boys' 6th grade team. One of the highlights was our 6th grade boys basketball team was able to actually win the Big Leaf Championship for the community-based travel league that they were actually in. Another positive is we had what was called the Bearcat Classic, where we hosted a tournament with our own community teams, but brought in teams from other communities right here in Bedford, where they were able to play their tournament games at the high school on the big court. Another thing that we also did is we held a youth basketball night, as well as some other youth nights throughout the year to bridge that gap between the high school sports as well as our intramural program. The plan, so what is next? I've been talking to our coaches, as now we have that database of who is interested in these sports. So we talked about, and not only, as we still are going to include people who are still interested, each sport is going to have an individualized clinic. So like football will have one, soccer, basketball will plan one, and it's all going to be in the summer. So I mentioned how I will have that summer football and summer cheer program as well, but then we're not going to get rid of those other sports. We'll have probably a one-day soccer clinic, a one-day basketball clinic, and things like that. The plan would be, if we get the green light once again, I would love to run the same program next year. I think it is very beneficial for our students. I would love to create more community-based travel like we were able to like we were for basketball for each individual sport. I think there's a big interest in soccer as well as volleyball in our community with the amount of participation that we got. I know that the Cleveland Browns also sponsor youth flag football, so that would be another thing where I would love to be able to get our students involved with other leagues and community-based travel where we can help alleviate the cost and present those opportunities to them. And then the last step that I think would be a nice cherry on top is if we are able to incorporate more student athletes in the actual program, whether they're getting service hours or whatever we have to do, but having our boys basketball players down there, our girls volleyball players, our football players helping out and doing things to bridge that gap and create that strong connection, because Bedford truly is a special place and our kids are great, and I think they need to be acknowledged more as well. So I would love to be able to bridge that gap with our middle school and high school athletes in our youth program. Does anyone have any questions?
I had a question. I know this is still the beginning of this process, but are you considering maybe adding more sports down the road, maybe like softball or wrestling or something to kind of introduce?
Yes, absolutely. So this is not limited to just these 3 sports continuously. I've been in conversations with the wrestling coach. We tried to get wrestling off the ground with Mr. Hoon. Just logistically, it was kind of late in the game. Baseball, softball, we definitely want to do those. We also have partnerships in the works, like conversations that I meet with the rec department as well, that we definitely would like to add many more sports, as this was kind of the first year and we treated it as a pilot. I knew, and Mr. Zofka and I, as well as some other coaches, discussed that we know that we've had in the past the interest in basketball, volleyball, and soccer, that we knew we'd be able to get things off the ground and test those and see how the program goes. But we're willing to make tweaks, and we want to give the most opportunities to our students, so we are willing to add more and more as long as we get the approval.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because with more programming comes financial need. So one of the things that we tried to make sure that we did was make it equitable in terms of sports, but also keeping that whole Title IX in the back of our mind as well. So we also wanted to make sure that it was done right. And I just want to thank you, Mr. Toll, because not only did you meet the goal, but you exceeded that. Just very organized. It's also been great to hear the feedback even from the teachers, because, you know, I think I shared I had a mom call as a student, maybe didn't make some good choices, and she said, well, so-and-so's not going to be at basketball.
question was gonna be on, it's inclusive to Bedford residents. How are we pushing this out to those students that may not attend our schools, however, live in our community and may not have, total access to, or know that these opportunities are still here because they attend the district?
So that's something that's definitely in the works. We have been using, we've seen a lot of our social media posts as well as just various other ways throughout the district. I know that it's a hurdle that we probably do need to improve on, but I would say the only thing thus far has been social media and just trying to get the word out that way, because we use our final forms, email, peach jar, and various other things for the students and students that are in the building, so they're able to get that. So I think the only way right now is social media. So if there are any suggestions on how to improve that, I am all ears, and I definitely think that's something we can do and work on.
Another question I had is, how are we looking at the data on trends of, when you're talking about new sports that you want to add, the trends of interest to introduce children to lacrosse or rugby or rowing, things that aren't your typical sports, however, are offered in various other districts in our surrounding space, to give them an opportunity for looking at college scholarships, the trending of those sports that are popular that they can get money for, to participate, to still, go to school and participate in.
So as of right now, due to the age of the intramural programs, we do a lot through the parents and guardians as putting feelers out there through Google Form and interest surveys. So we have been doing that, but in regards to just some things that at the high school level and middle school level that we're thinking about doing as well, as we've been, so for example, at the high school level, we started boys volleyball, and that is kind of falling in that intramural category. We also started a girls flag football program, so that's also kind of, those are in those like gray areas because they're not OSHA sports yet, or they're the first year that we're doing them. So we poll the students directly. So I am fortunate enough to have access to that final forms of high school students as well as middle school students. So I'm just able to send out a Google form. I work hand in hand with our athletic director, Mr. Zafka, and he says, hey, see if there's interest in boys volleyball. I'll send out a Google form. Hey, we have 50 kids that said that they'd be interested, so now they have a boys volleyball team. We did same thing with girls flag football. We sent out a thing, hey, we're going to take some girls to the Browns clinic, and then we might start flag football. We have over 40 girls in our flag football program, so it's just those interest surveys are kind of what we're doing. In regards to those other sports, like you mentioned, I think starting at the younger levels would be easier to build them up. It's not like we're just going to get a golf team at the high school by snapping our fingers, but looking at other programs that we have been in communication with Mr. Zafka and I have talked about, like our first tee program for golf that we would love to bring back. It would just be sending those interest surveys out to parents and guardians to gather that information to see, because they're going to be the ones that are putting their students in things, that those would be things that we may send out over the summer, or I'd be willing to gather information on various sports if we're able to.
We used to have golf.
Yes.
And kudos on the girls flag football. I was going to mention that. I think that is awesome. I saw the pictures and everything on social media, and I would love to even see that. I don't know if it's in the works or not, but even coming down to the middle school as an opportunity for 7th and 8th grader young ladies that would like to participate in that particular sport too. So I think it's awesome what you're doing. Congratulations and thank you so much. As Dr. Johnson said, you exceeded her expectation of what it was, and I didn't have no doubt behind that. So great job, great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Choate. I do love your magic.
Thank you.
Make it work. And I just want to pick back up something Danielle mentioned about the sports that our children typically are not involved in. And I'm especially interested in rugby myself because I see it at another school and the kids absolutely love it, so big, scholarships out there for it. So sometimes our children don't know what's out there. So I hope that you will follow up on that and bring in some additional sports. If we have the money, of course, to support the program. I saw Andrew, you're looking at me. But great job, and I love the magic, and I think it appears that you're getting a lot of parental support, which is great, and I wanted to piggyback up what you said about the other municipalities, because I'm one of those people that fight for more in our community for our children
for things for our children to do. So hopefully they see this and will motivate them to even provide more for our children in the district. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is item number 4, is our audience participation. And according to Andrew, we have no one that has filled out a card for us. Okay. Well, we'll move right on to item number 5, which is our consent agenda. Board, could I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it is presented? 5.01.
I motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Has been moved by Mr. Akins and seconded by Mrs. Macklin. Board, do we have any questions, any discussion on any items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Boynton,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch,
Yes.
Mrs. Mack.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Item number 6, which is approval of the minutes. 6.01, Board, I would need a motion to approve the minutes for March 16th, 2023.
Motion to approve the minutes of March 16th meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Turner Birch and seconded by Mr. Akins. Do we have Akins? Do we have any discussion, Board? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Turner Birch,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton,
Yes.
Mrs. Mack.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Item number 7 is our superintendent's report. Dr. Johnson?
Good evening, Board President, Vice President, Board members. This evening, I have 6 items to recommend. Under 7.01, I ask of your approval of the following administrative personnel. Mrs. Armstrong to serve as a supervisor of pupil personnel. Under 7.02, we ask of your approval to, actually this is just a reading, we don't take a vote on this. This is the second reading of the following policies. Under 7.03, we ask of your approval of the Final Schools Council's resolution. Under 7.04, our partnership with the Imagination Library. Under 7.05, we received a Project Lead the Way grant that we ask of your approval for us to receive those grant funds. And under 7.06, we ask of your approval for the request to use the following facilities usage.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Board, would you like to have this done individually, or can we just put it as a consent agenda individually? Alrighty. 7.01, could I have a motion to approve the administrative personnel as it is presented?
Motion to approve the administrative personnel as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Akins, seconded by Ms. Turner Birch. Any questions or discussion about the approval of Ms. Armstrong? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch,
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton,
Yes.
Mrs. Mack.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Item number 7.02 is just our second reading of the board policies.
Can, we make an adjustment to
And
how it's titled?
Sure, yes. On the agenda, it says second reading and approval of the revised board policy. We are just having a second reading, and we will not be approving it tonight. We will make the correction as noted. 7.03, could I have a motion to approve the resolution of the Ohio School Council?
approve the Ohio School Council resolution as presented.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Akins, second by Mrs. Macklin. Do we have any questions, board, or discussion about the Ohio School Council?
What is the Ohio School Council? What do they actually do? Is that the superintendent?
Yeah, so this is to join basically they have a consortium where they go out and do the bidding for us on special items, including buses and other items that we may procure directly by the school. They provide the special prices so that we don't have to go out and do our own bidding and get those 3 bids that the auditors require us to do.
Okay.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, board. Next on the agenda, 7.04. Can I have approval to, can I have a motion to approve the imaginary library program as it is presented?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Turner Birch and second by Mr. Akins. Do we have any questions for it? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Turner Birch?
Yes.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Item number 7.05. Could I have Project Lead the Way? Could I have a motion to approve this agreement, board?
Motion to approve the Project Lead the Way agreement as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Akins and second by Ms. Turner Birch. Any questions for it? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, board. And finally, 7.06. Could I have a motion to approve the following building permits as they are presented by our Executive Director of Operations?
Motion to approve the following building permits as presented by the Executive Director of Operations.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Akins, second by Mrs. Macklin. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, board.
Thank you, Board President, Vice President, Board members, for your approval of those items. At this time, I would like to just welcome Mrs. Armstrong to the Bearcat family. This is a big role, but we do have a lot of work to do to best support our students with disabilities in that department. And Mr. Waters, myself, and the team felt that you were up for that challenge, so we just wanted to thank you for also choosing Bedford.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored and so excited to start this new chapter in my career. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong. Did you bring anybody with you?
This is my husband, Don,
Okay.
of 30 years.
Oh, 30 years, wow. Congratulations.
30 happy years.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. We welcome you to our Bearcat family.
What did you say, Mrs. Shannon?
I said, I'm so happy for them.
All right. All right. Item number 8 on the agenda is the treasurer's report.
Good evening, Madam President,
Good evening.
Vice President, board members, and Dr. Johnson. Tonight we have 3 items for you. One is a service contract for Strategic Solutions. This will provide some additional support in our workflow in the finance office with approving and processing of purchase orders. We have a service contract with Going Approved, which will assist us in our reconciliation process. And we have the approval of purchase orders to conclude our workflow.
Thank you. Can we take those orders consent agenda, or would you like to do them individually? Alright. Also, could I have a motion to approve, item number 8.01, the service contract, 8.02, another service contract, and 8.03, approval of the purchase orders. That's presented.
I make a motion to approve the purchase orders of 8.01, 8.02, and 8.03 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. The contracts, yes, thank you. It's been moved by Mr. Hayes and second by, Mrs. Macklin. Do you have any questions or discussion, board? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes,
Mrs. Sternberg?
Yeah.
Thank you.
motion passes, 4-0. Next on the agenda is item number 9, which is Board of Education new business. And the first item is 9.01, administrative personnel, and we are so happy to be able to present this particular motion. And we're asking the board to please make a motion to approve Ms. Tabitha Armstrong as our interim treasurer, which would be effective April 1st, 2023 to July 31st, 2023, and as treasurer effective August 1st, 2023 to July 31st, 2026. Board, could I please have a motion to pass this resolution to approve the treasurer's contract and to approve Ms. Armstrong as our interim treasurer?
Second.
I was doing a lot of talking, huh? Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Turner Birch and second by, Mrs. Macklin. I would like to say that we are so happy to have Ms. Armstrong as our interim treasurer. She's not with us tonight because she had previous engagement out of this list, am I correct? So we did go through the process of, posting the position as treasurer in February, and it was posted for 1 month. We had a first and second interview with Mrs. Armstrong, who was our first choice, as you can see. And so we actually made a decision at our last board meeting, and we are so glad that Mrs. Armstrong accepted our offer, and she will be our interim treasurer to the end of this school year, and beginning of the new school year, she will be our treasurer. So we're so happy to have a treasurer. So, Ward, oh, sorry, would you have anything, would you like to say anything?
Just the fact that, again, just like you stated by Madam President, that we did have the position open for some time, but this was a candidate that proved to be the best suited for this position. When she came for the interview, I personally noticed how much of a heart she had for this type of role, and I could see that she wanted to excel in this position. So I just look forward to working with her more closely as our new treasurer.
It's imperative, in a position that we are looking at those who are vested and invested. And she truly showed, as Mr. Hankins said, her tenacity, her determination, and her investment into this district. And, you know, just being in that space, she's been here for some time. Like you said, the one that rose to the top as being the best qualified for our district in our capacity of what we have. So congratulations for Ms. Armstrong to join the team here in the cabinet, and we're looking for great things from her.
I just want to say congratulations and welcome to Bedford. Welcome back to Bedford. She came back to us. We really needed her, and we need her now. So I just want to say congratulations and good luck to her.
I too would just like to just say congratulations to my counterpart. I'm very excited and I look forward to working with Tabby. Honestly, I been led to ever think that she can't do such a job. She's always very positive, and I totally agree with you, Ms. Birch, in terms of her focus and her dedication to our children, her being a community member, and constantly thinking about doing what's best for the kids. I'm looking very forward to working side by side with someone that exuberates that passion and that desire and dedication to the students and the staff of Beverly Sixth Grade Schools. So I want to thank the board for your hiring of Tabby Armstrong.
And if I may, I also just want to just chime in and thank you guys for, it's just been an honor to serve the district as the interim treasurer for the last few months. And you have made a great selection. Tabby has an incredible work ethic and a drive and a will to learn, and she will excel in this work. Mrs. Turner Birch,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton,
Yes.
Mr. Akins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passed 4-0. Yay! 9.02 is any board announcements.
I have one. The night of the races, I have tickets, they're $50 a person. It's April 29th from 6 to 10, but you don't have to leave at 10 because it's at the Wincoln Vincent on Miles Road, so anybody need a ticket, I have some. And also, I wanted to say it when Tanisha was here, but I didn't. I'm gonna let her know when Howard come back. I will donate a lunch ticket. I will make sure that they get, because, you know, when you have young people who wanna do something for other young people and show them the right way, then we need to show them the way. So, one day, she can give me a date, and I'll bring my truck up, and if it's no cost, I'll donate it, and I'll donate a lunch to them, because I really think that's
Oh,
great.
that's wonderful.
I really think that's great, so if you can get it to Tanisha and let her know, and her and Felicia can give me a date, and I'll do that for them, so. I mean, it's for the kids, so. But don't forget the night of the races. Sam Walters,
Yes,
night
ma'am.
of the races.
Don't forget to mention what the night of the races is at the foundation.
Oh, it's the Bedford Foundation.
Give our scholarship fund.
That's her night of the races, not.
She's not right, not Miss Sharon Reese.
Mine is the night out, not the races.
Also, I would like to announce that some of our board members will be going to the Board Leadership PD, which will be in Columbus on April 20. I'm getting dates wrong, so 28th and 29th, all day on Friday and a half day on Saturday. So we're looking forward to when we can attend, get some professional development, so we can improve our roles as a board member. So I'm really looking forward to this particular session.
I have one. As the legislative liaison for this district, I just want to share that I went down on March 21st as a PD with the legislative conference that I attended, which was excellent. Got to sit in front of Governor DeWine as well as senators. Our House Rep Phil Robinson spoke on a panel, and it was very interesting to be abreast of a lot of these House bills and Senate bills that are pretty problematic and that can be definitely a detrimental factor to our district, specifically to given of the demographical makeup of our district. So I just wanted to put on the radar that was an experience. I didn't get to go to a committee hearing, but there were some testifying against House Bill 12. There is a few bills I just want to throw out. If you can go on to our General Assembly website, please go verse yourself in those bills. House Bill 1. We have House Bill 12. Senate Bill 1, sorry, is the State School Board Power Grab. which brings the state school board into the governor's cabinet instead of having our state school board be over curriculum and other things that they design for our districts. That is also in conjunction with House Bill 11. Then we have House Bill 1, which is a flat tax, which is one of the ones that are problematic due to property taxes, in which we get funding to our district is through that. We also have, sorry, I did say conjunction, so Senate Bill 1 and House Bill 12 are the two that are the state school board. When we were talking about this morning, and I know Dr. Johnson may speak to it, but Representative Juanita Brandt is not our state representative anymore for the Bedford City School District. However, she did take some time today during the House recess to speak with a few of our students in our government class, and Mr. Mark's class, and she spoke to some of the House updates. She mentioned House Bill 84, which coincides with policing and lowering the age of our police officers. So that's important when we're talking about hiring resource officers in our district and in the community. She also spoke to House Bill 83 and 4. Yeah, and the school funding bill. I'm trying to think of what that House bill, the fair funding, and then the universal vouchers. Which is another one that is in committee hearings, which will give vouchers out to majority of our district, and will raise the requirement of how much you make from 200% to 400%, which therefore creates a vast amount of eligibility to take students outside of public school. So public schooling is on the table in our house. Even though we are not electing this election cycle, our state representatives, but there is a local election. And primaries, what we don't know is that primary elections are your most important. So I also want to advise folks to get out and vote. There is a primary election on May 12th. So I just want to put that out there so that we can get to these polls even in the off-presidential cycle years, as well as not voting for our legislatures. That is the end of my report.
Thank you, ma'am. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thanks for sharing.
And I have one final thing. This is for our Bedford High School senior class. On April 20th, 2 weeks from today, they're going to have their Bedford High School senior class fundraiser. It'll be at Raising Cane's in Macedonia from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So if you're able to stop there for dinner, lunch, whatever, or even on your way to our next meeting, which is on that same day.
It's the same day.
Mhm.
You can just stop and buy some dinner.
I was going to ask our treasurer to do that.
Don't think we can do that.
But if you go there, just mention that it's for the Bedford High School senior class fundraiser, and they will get 15% of the sales back to them. So just please support our high school seniors. They are the last trek of their high school journey. So.
I had a couple of
Thank you.
things. That's okay.
Sure.
One, going back to what Mrs. Burch talked about, Representative Juanita Brandt did take the time out of her busy schedule to meet with one of our government classes, Mr. Luke's students. And I want to thank him as well for facilitating and organizing the students to come together. What Ms. Brent puts out a really great newsletter to kind of keep the community abreast, even beyond, the district that she serves or the region that she serves. It's very informative. I also want to thank Ms. Birch for also passing along information that she sent out at times to make sure that we're all aware of all these important changes that are trying to be put before the House and Senate. But I was proud of our students. They had some amazing questions. Not that I was surprised, but you only hear about the less than 1% of concerns out there. People don't really get to see the amazing highly intelligent, focused students, and she gave some great tips and insight into how they can be advocates for their own future. So I just appreciated that. The other piece of this is I just want to tell the board that we had an on-site audit today from the Ohio Department of Education. I just want to thank Mr. Harrington and his administrative assistant Katrina for the hard work that they did. The auditors raved about the preparation, the facilitation of the work that he had done. So I just want to thank him. I know it was a lot of work, a lot of stress. So that's why you don't see him here tonight. I'm like, you need to go home. Because it takes a lot. People don't really see or understand that all goes into school funding, but also the expectations of public school funding as opposed to private charters. But they, you know, the watchdog is out there. So they were here today and they raved about the work and the preparation that went into it, and they had some really good things to say. I want to thank our parents because we were required to provide an opportunity for parents to speak and talk to them. Students, they went out to the buildings as well as speak to the district level personnel. So they had nothing but positive things to say. So I just want to thank Mr. Harrington for that work and thank the Treasurer's Department for all that support, because I know we had to keep coming and saying, give us this and give us that, as well as our buildings. They had a lot of great things to say about the building leadership and the preparation that they had done in getting ready for their presentations. But they had good things to say.
Thank you. That's great. Wish us the best, like I said. Wonderful. Yes.
If I may,
I'm sorry, of course.
if I may just continue on what Dr. Johnson said, the auditors not only praised like, the preparation and the way that Mr. Harrington presented all the data, but they also really wanted to focus on the actual content that he was pushing under the leadership of Dr. Johnson, and they just praised him for the direction that he's taking the district.
And I think they asked him to come and present.
They did.
And Christine in the fall.
Yeah, after the audit, they said, can you come present at our meeting?
Oh, man, that's awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. All right. Good stuff tonight. Item number 10 is executive session. At this time, could I have a motion to go into executive session?
Make a motion to enter into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Akins and second by Mrs. Macklin. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mrs. Serna?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you everyone for coming out. We will be going into executive session at 7:36, and we will not be voting on anything once we return. So we thank you for coming out, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and we'll see you at the facility meeting if you can't make our next meeting. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.